There's a lot going on, and I don't think this year is going to be a great year for your business. Now, I do think you're going to make progress. I do think some things are going to get better, but I believe you're going to get to the end of the year and you're going to be, we'll call it, disappointed. When I was 20, I took a software job. And we were in the decision support industry. We were making really complex decisions on behalf of our users. And we were dealing with hardware and servers that we didn't necessarily control. So we were deploying our technology onto those other systems. This was a long time ago. I was 20. It's been a long time. We were dealing with a lot of really difficult things. At that business, I met this guy named John. For those of you that know me through Service Autopilot, John was my business partner in Service Autopilot. In fact, John and I have actually done a number of technology projects together over the years, Service Autopilot being the single most important. So back then, I'm 20, I'm getting close to finishing college, and I'm working at this job. I've always worked for myself. This is my first job working with other people. I'd always mowed lawns and I had vending machines up until that time. So I'm now in a work world. I've never been in a work world. And John is the senior engineer, hands down, smartest guy in the business when it comes to technology. And we deal with these really hard problems. And John would get to this place sometimes where he would just be pissed. He would I give up. I'm done. I quit. Just pissed. Bunch of cuss words. Maybe he'd leave the room. That's really stressful for me, working alongside him, trying to figure out this problem. And he's the dude with all the knowledge. I'm this new guy learning to program, learning all the technology. I'm figuring it out. He's the guy with all the experience, and that guy's saying, we're screwed. It's over. This is going to take us down. He used to say that all the time. This is going to take us down. And that stressed me out for quite a long time. So I've now worked with John for at least 25 years, off and on. We didn't work together solid. We've done a number of things over the years. And he's never stopped doing this. It's never stopped. In the Service Autopilot days, we get to something that's really complicated. Nobody else could figure it out. Or it'd be him and a couple other guys, but it really kind of fell on him. And he'd go through that exact same thing. But fortunately, years and years ago, I had figured out when John gets to this place where he's done, he gives up, it's over, we're going out of business, we're not going to make it, breakthrough's right around the corner. And I'll tell you in a minute how I figured that out and why that was. But let's go back to your business. Your business isn't going to suck this year because of immigration, the economy, whomever's the president. It's not going to suck for any of those reasons. And it's also not going to be good for any of those reasons. It's not going to be good because of the president. It's not going to be good because of the economy. It's not going to be good because we're getting regulation out of the system, maybe. None of that's going to make or break your business. Yes, some of that might have a little impact on your business, but the business is going to suck this year, and you're going to be disappointed for one reason. You. And I do not say this coming from a place of superiority. I say this from a place of, I've been doing this a while. I'm probably older than you. And when I reflect on what I've got right and what I've got wrong, there's only one person to usually point at, and it's me. And so the business is going to not achieve what you wanted to achieve this year because of you, and mine, if it doesn't achieve what I want, will be because of me. And there's just no getting around it. So I want you to think about your business last year. Were you completely happy with the outcome? Did you get to the end of the year and you say to yourself, we nailed it? I, at the beginning of the year, had set these goals and said we were going to get these things, and at the end of the year, you got those things. Did that happen? I'm going to guess no. And if it didn't happen, now let's think about this year. What would have to be true for this year to actually result in a situation where you're at Christmas and you're looking back and you're saying, we nailed it. We nailed it. We said we were going to do X and we got it. What would have to happen? I'd argue there's probably 3 massive things that have to happen for that to be the case. I don't know what those 3 things are, but they're probably something around recruiting, something around sales and marketing, And if your company's a little bit of a mess, not very profitable, probably something around operations. But there's three things, at least. But there's three really important things that will move the needle in a way that nothing else you could do would move the needle. What are those things? You might even pause the video and think about that for a moment. What are those three things? We all say we want to own a business. We want to start a business. I'm guessing if you're watching this, you own one. We all say we want to be a millionaire. We want to be wealthy. We all say we want to be in shape. But if you walk out on the street and you look around and you observe the public, how many people out there are getting the thing that they want? How many people every day when they wake up say, I want this, and every day at the end of the day, it's essentially a failure. They didn't get it. And at the end of the month, in the quarter, in the year, didn't get it. That's the majority of the world, in my opinion. I don't want that for you. I don't. For whatever reason, and when I say that, I probably don't know you, but I have friends that I've done coaching with. I have friends that I've worked with in the software business. I have business partners. And when I say I don't want that to happen to you, I'm picturing them. And maybe one day, if I don't know you, we'll be friends. I don't want that for you. I want you to get the thing you want. I legitimately do. But it's really freaking hard. And that's why so few people have it, and the majority of people just talk about it. So now let's go back to John. So the reason I knew that the problem that we were facing that was going to take us down, end the company, John had given up on me, the reason I knew we were about to have a breakthrough, and I didn't get this for the longest time, was because John had just gone through a heads down, all in, max focus situation. He wasn't able to look at the news. He didn't go to lunch. He didn't go to the break room and have a conversation. He wasn't thinking about dinner tonight. He wasn't thinking about, something his girls had to do. He wasn't thinking about anything except keeping our world from ending. He was like maniacal, all in focus on a problem for as long as you had to focus. Everything else blocked out. And after a while, I figured out that time, that focus, is what led to the breakthrough. Now, there would come a point where he'd been focusing for so long, he was so frustrated that he'd reach this moment of like, I give up and maybe leave the room. He always came back. And he usually came back really quick if he did leave the room. I knew in 15 minutes to a couple hours, problem was going to be fixed. It was almost like a sense of relief. We had gone through this so many times. But when I looked back on it, I realized it's that intense focus that you get when you're dealing with a massive problem of that sort that you don't get when you're just trying to make forward progress because you want the forward progress. That problem had a way of focusing the mind. Years ago, like a long time ago, I remember going to this marketing conference, and this guy was on stage. It's the end of the year, and he's talking about how he just ended the greatest business year of his life. And when he started the year, his business was like mediocre and facing a lot of problems and a lot of uncertainty. And he was desperate to figure this thing out. And he had a bunch of ideas. But he just, like, how am I ever going to get all this stuff done? And so he had this idea to send his family away for 12 days. He sent them to the beach, if I remember correctly. But basically, kids, wife, go have a vacation. He bought enough frozen meals at the grocery store for 12 days, and he never left the house. He got up in the morning, and he worked till dark, and he did it every day, all day long. Intense focus, blocked out everything he could possibly block out. Now he's standing on stage at the end of the year. During those 12 days, or 2 weeks, whatever it was, he took massive action, and he moved forward a number of projects that had he not done that, those projects would have kind of got a little attention here and a little there, a little here, a little there, and maybe they would have been done by the end of the year. But this hyper focus is this massive action is what resulted in getting a bunch of stuff done early in the year that moved the ball forward, and they reaped the benefits the entire year. How can you put yourself in a position like that? How do you make yourself think like that? For me, in the two most important businesses I've ever done that have gone the best, I had a wife and I had kids in both businesses. And I wanted to be as present as I could as a dad and a husband and be around. I was good at it at times, not good at it at other times. And I will say my brain never stopped thinking about work, but I did my best. But what I came to conclude was I could move my balls forward and take big leaps forward from 10 p.m. till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because that's when my family went to bed. And it was a pretty brutal schedule. But I would look back and say, man, I wish I hadn't done that, because I've totally jacked up my sleep in a way. It's impossible for me to be a morning person now. But I also look back and say, I made massive progress during that period. I really moved the ball forward, not only in what I learned, but in terms of getting things done. Yeah, I wasn't always truly efficient, but that's when the big leaps happened. And then as my businesses scaled and I had teams around me and leadership and people to do the work, I could move a ball forward from, call it 10 to 3, but it's like one little thing inside the scale of a massive thing, a big business. So my little contribution didn't matter as much anymore. My contributions came mainly through me being in a meeting, setting a vision, or working with the team on the vision, and then getting all that massive action done, making all that stuff happen via people. So we would sit in a meeting, we'd figure out the very best thing to do, then the team would have a deadline, and the deadline could be we were having an event, we needed to get out a software release, or spring rush season was coming, or selling season was coming, something's coming, and that focus on hitting that deadline and having the right people know exactly what they needed to do, where everybody went into a focus mode to hit that deadline, that's how all progress happened inside our businesses. That's what made all the difference. The thing we all despise and hate about our business is the problems. But the problems never end. And we don't want the problems. But interestingly enough, if you look at the majority of businesses, most businesses don't just grow steadily like this, and they don't make a bunch of progress, or they don't make big leaps simply because they have big ambitions. The majority of companies make all their leaps because something outside their control happened to them. Somebody left the company, a marketing campaign failed, they're in debt, something happened that put them in a really bad place that made their brain go all in, focused, fix the problem, work it. And it's unfortunate, but that is how it works. So if you swipe a lesson from that, and you're like, okay, if that's how most progress happens, well, how can we orchestrate progress without having to have a problem imposed on us? I tend to argue it's setting this vision with a deadline you have to hit, and then you and the team going into massive action mode. Well, so how do you do this? Well, go back to what I said earlier. You've got to have just a few things you've identified that are the most important things that will move the ball forward. Again, it's probably recruiting, it's probably marketing, and it's probably something operational. So of whatever that list is for your company, what is the single thing that if we all put our heads down and worked on it right now would get us what we want, would get us the most progress? And then what's the next most important thing to work on? And the way I think about this is, coming from the software world, we used to think in terms of what are called sprints. So a sprint would be some number of days, oftentimes is a week or 2 weeks, but it could be longer or shorter. And a sprint would be, here's what we got to get done. Here are the people that are going to get that thing done. Here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing. Every day we're going to do a stand-up in the beginning of the day, and we're going to say, okay, what did you get done yesterday? What are you working on today? Do you have any bottlenecks? They call that Scrum. And we did this every day. And so the sprint would be, we're all in this group of us within the company. There were these sprints going on all around the company. This sprint is trying to accomplish this outcome. And we're all working it. And every day we're getting back together for 10 minutes and we're all saying, this is where we're at. And we all go back to work. That's the mission. So how could you think about what you need to get done in sprints, these 7 to 14 day sprints? And hopefully you have a team. If you don't, it's all on you. What's the most important thing you need to get done? And then how do you put your head down, go all in, like a couple of the stories I've told you. Block it all out. Tell your family, for the next 2 weeks, I'm really not going to be very present. I'm going to miss a few things, but this is going to move things forward for us, and it's going to fix all these things that will eventually make me a little more present, hopefully. But just really encourage you to think in terms of sprints, deadlines, things of that sort. One more. I remember giving a talk years ago at an event. I don't remember all the details of it, but it was this concept of dominoes. And the concept is there's this thing in your life. There's something, and it's different for all of us, that if you could knock this, like, just think about this line of dominoes. If you would knock this one thing off your list, if you would solve this thing, in other words, you tip that domino, it will make all the other dominoes tip. It'll make everything else easier. What is that thing? I think for me, I think for probably you, for most of us, that domino has to do with performance. How are you eating? Are you exercising? How are you sleeping? I didn't really get the sleep thing so right over the years. I did pretty good on the diet and exercise, but I didn't get any of it. If I think of my career over a 20, 25 year period, I give myself a B at times and a C at times. The point here is, in those moments when all that stuff is dialed in, I perform at a different level. I think at a different level. I have more energy. I go faster. I don't wake up and want to procrastinate. I procrastinate less. Like, what is that thing for you? It's probably what I just said. It's probably thinking about your performance. So as you go into this season of heads down, we're going to hit spring selling season, or we're going to hit whatever that deadline is, how can you position yourself to have the maximum amount of energy and be operating at your highest level, so that you can be max focused and hit this deadline? Again, remember, why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because this is how you move the ball forward. This is how you make massive leaps. This is how you get to the end of the year and you look back and you say, we got what we said we were going to get. And when you do that a couple times, what happens? You want more of it, and you keep doing it. When I was naming this channel 5 for 50, the reason I called it this is because I have looked at so many businesses over the years, and I've built so many businesses. They all take 5 years. It doesn't mean I'm broke or destitute or poor or miserable for 5 years. It just means that in 5 years, I can finally arrive at a place where I've built this foundation, and it's almost like you can breathe a sigh of relief. You've built something where you can look at it and say, oh, I can see how now this thing has momentum, and this thing is going to keep going, and it's going to get better. Now, you have to build it right to get there in 5 years. Just existing for 5 years doesn't get there. The whole idea of 5 for 50 is you've got to be doing the right things, learning the right things, focused on the right things. There's a bunch of other things you got to do for 5 years. And if you do that, you will wake up at the end of 5 years and say, I can't believe what we've built. I have built a foundation in a business that is just going to keep going, and is going to take incredible care of me and my family forever, for the rest of my life, and hopefully create a big wealth event where maybe I sell it out into the future. The other reason why I named it 5 for 50 is I believe, as I said, everybody wants to be rich, and everybody thinks business is their get-rich vehicle to get them there. And the reality is, it is not. Business is a journey, and it takes a while to get there, and it requires lots of deposits. Sometimes they're money, time, blood, whatever the thing is. You're depositing into this thing, and it's creating a lot of pain. But on the other side, you become a completely different human being with a completely different skill set that allows you to build something that transforms the rest of your life. And in 5 for 50, I represent the rest of your life as 50 years. That's the 50. Everybody says they want this. Almost nobody does it. And almost nobody will do it for 5 years. I should have called it like 7 weeks to $7 million. That would be more popular, but that's not reality. Reality is it's going to take you quite a while to get there. But when you get there, you will never, ever, ever look back and say, I wish I hadn't gone on that journey. That was too hard. It was too much. It took too long. It wasn't worth it. You will never say that. I've never met a single person in my life that has said that. This is the single best journey you can go on. So I encourage you in this year, heads down, all in, giant leaps, intense focus, whatever you got to do, be the best version of you so you show up with all the energy you need to get the thing you want. And then model that to your team and ask the same of them. It's life-changing. I want you to live a life like nobody else gets to. That's the 5 for 50. The 50 is the rest of your life living in a way that nobody else gets to live it. I hope you kill it this year.